Hello, happy people. I hope you are having just an absolutely amazing day today, one of the best you've ever had in your life. And if not, it will be by the time this day is over with. All right, so on Saturday, I dedicate to the forgotten serial telling genre for you folks. Now, I just finished up the second season of Doctor Who from the 60s. And so the first Doctor, William Hartnell era, with the Time Meddler, I finished that last Saturday, so I'm back to the movie serials for you folks. I thought it'd be great to do some Tarzan stuff. So we're going to do the last Tarzan serial ever done from 35. This is the New Adventures of Tarzan and that sort of a thing. Yay, back to movie serials. Alrighty. So this is a 12-episode 1935 Tarzan serial. And the first episode is very, very long. Not the typical, 25 or 30 minutes. It's a very, very long. All the rest are normal length. All right, so this stars as Tarzan Herman Briggs and as Ulla Vale, a female major character who moves the plot along very strongly, is Ulla Bolt. For you folks, Ashton Deerholt stars as the evil bad guy who's a mercenary too, P.V. Raglan, and as the older science archaeologist is Frank Baxter as Major Francis Martling. In this, the Major uncovers a way to find in Guatemala an idol that's known as the Green Goddess, and that also comes with a nasty weapon attached to that nefarious forces hire Raglan to steal and bring back to them. Ulla follows Raglan in order to make sure that they are unsuccessful and that the good ones find it, and that sort of thing. They are often captured by locals. Tarzan went from Africa, where he starts off in the serial, which is all we know him from, because one of his friends crash lands here, and he's going to go follow up on him. And we'll find him in the first episode. And then it does feel a bit out of its time in their view of the natives of Guatemala. Just as heads up, seeing them as very religiously bad and inept and cowering and evil, and that sort of thing. There's definitely a lot of racist tones to them. For example, in the first episode, they are grabbed by the natives who tell them that white people always kill them or take their stuff. But our heroes tell them that they're not those people, and that so forth. But they are there to take the stuff, so, right? And then they don't, right? And they don't act realistically. Like, for example, they have guns pointed towards the natives, but rather than putting their guns down or on the ground or turning them away or something like that, they just say, "Hey, I'm not those folks." Right, and that sort of thing. It doesn't really show them as, but really understanding sort of what natives were like back then. Just as so, this is actually licensed by Burroughs, and then he sold the rights for other things to a rival studio for a lot of cash because he just divorced his long-term wife for a younger woman who's 30 years younger than him. In order to work, who worked hard to shut down the theaters that were booking this. So it just didn't have as many books, and then we also had that sort of a don't book with them, book with us, right, and that sort of thing. So it did well. It did badly domestically, but well internationally. So for those reasons, this is actually the Tarzan that was the last. There were actually a couple more before this. 29. I think one from the early 30s. But 35 isn't that old into the movie serial era to be the last one of a major IP like that. And that sort of a thing. Just as there's also a comic relief character in here who is a Tarzan fan named George. George is actually played by somebody whose real life name is Sargent. But he's horrible here. He has got bad physical comedy and that sort of thing. I don't like it at all. Also, in the final episode, not the 10th, not the 11th, in the final episode, it's a clip show. Ooh, that was a bad choice to my mind. But the good thing about that is that Tarzan here is a lot more like the Tarzan in the books that everybody loves. He's much more intelligent, much more mature, and that sort of thing. He's not speaking, randomly bad English, right, or that sort of thing. So I do enjoy the characterization of Tarzan here. It's a 10 out. It's a 7 out of 10 for those reasons. It was also filmed in the country Guatemala that it's set in. So you can definitely see that in the sets and that sort of thing. But it wasn't a big budget, so it doesn't have these sprawling like things like costumes or anything like that. But I definitely think it's fine. I think it's the best Tarzan serial I've seen, but I've only seen this. But I know a lot of other Tarzan fans or critics prefer this to the other ones. Just as up. Alrighty, so there you are. So that is my thoughts on the 1935 movie serial, The New Adventures of Tarzan in 35. So I'm giving this again a 7 out of 10 for you folks. So what did you think about it? Let me know what your thoughts about it are in the comments below. Remember, I'm not a trained film critic. I'm just a fan, right? As a reminder, my serials are a lost storytelling genre, so I like to spend Saturday with these and that sort of a thing. It's back then they really sort of sold seats, particularly movies or TV serials, and bringing people back and then keeping them invested, right? And typically, for example, in the movie theaters, you often just wouldn't go like you would today to one theater, see a couple of trailers, and then leave. Basically, what you do back then is you would go for like a half a day, and you would watch a few shorts, like trailers, but they weren't as popular back then. But newsreels and those cartoons that you see that are like a few minutes long, and that sort of thing for kids, and then an A picture, and then you would finish with a serial, and that sort of thing. You wouldn't finish with the A film; you would finish with a serial, heading into intermission. And so, heading into intermission, they would be like, that A picture was really, really good or had some great stuff or concepts. You would be going and say, what's going to happen to a serial? How are they going to survive that cliffhanger, right? And then after intermission, you would come back, you'd have another couple of shorts. You would have the B film, oftentimes like an hour or so long, maybe a little longer. And then you would have finish up with another serial, and then everybody would be leaving and heading home. And again, that would be your sort of, wow, that serial, how's that person going to survive? The cliffhanger, right? And that would be the talking points. And so the talking points, the water cooler talk, if you will, of that era wasn't, the TVs or the movies. It was the serials. It's what everybody was talking about at that time. It was what brought people back, and that sort of thing. So that's basically how it worked back then, and that sort of a thing. And everybody sort of went together as a family, as a community, as a war, with their jobs, their works, their schools, churches, whatever. All of those sorts of things, right? And then they would go there and then come back and then. And then talk about it for the week. And then everybody would go back the next week to like a half day, right? And that's sort of how movie theaters sort of brought people back to the movie theaters. Alrighty, so there you are. Yesterday I did my top 10 musical albums, and then the previous week I did my top 10 artists. I've also recently done my top 10 board games, or I also did a lot of films in between those. I did my top 10 independent films recently, as well as a lot of other things out there too, so if you like that too, I think you'll enjoy that too. And so those are older things too, typically, just like the serials. And then on Wednesdays, I do video game reviews and older things typically. Although sometimes we'll do a newer one if I just started it. Like I did Two Point Museum a couple of weeks after it was released. I put like 80 hours in that game. Alrighty, so I just recently, because it was the 12th anniversary, literally, on Wednesday of Don't Starve, I did my review of it, and I love Don't Starve. I put like 700 hours into that game. I love it lots, and so, love it, and so I thought it was very influential in modern games too. So I also did my review of that on Wednesdays, and then on Mondays I do reviews of older RPGs and war games like BattleTech or Dungeons and Dragons. And I did my review last one of I finished I'd done 7 weeks set aside to the B1 through Q1 mega series that many people have voted as the best Dungeons and Dragons module of all time. In the 30th anniversary of the game. So I did Q1. I just knocked it out too, but I'll probably be heading back there. I'm not sure what I'll do. But I've recently done the Assassin's Knot, or The Secret of Mount Hill. I did some back me stuff like X1, The Isle of Dread, X2, Castle Amber, and I've even done B4, The Secret of the Secret of the Lost City by Tom Mulvey. So if you like that stuff, you'll definitely enjoy that stuff too. Alrighty, so all those older things, and then I do 3 reviews a week of older things that I read in the books or short stories or poems or even novellas in the 3 genres I carry: science fiction, fantasy, and horror. So if you like those older things and it sounds like something you'd be interested in, hey, I definitely want to encourage you to do all the YouTube stuff. Right, hit the subscribe button, like, share with your friends, and then just go back and watch them. And if you're feeling frisky, just hit the bell icon too to be notified of my 7 videos. Alrighty, but share and watch. Those are the key ways to grow the channel. And then also, if you are I was looking at the name and wondering why all these things are older things I tend to do reviews of. That's also because this channel is a passion of me to do a lot of these older things for you folks, right? I'll learn more as I go back and look at old things that influence us, right? The name of this channel is The Worst Thing About New Books. That's a quote by a French philosopher, Jacques Joubert, in the 19th century, who said that the worst thing about them was that they kept us just from reading the old ones, right? Not that there's anything bad with them, but they're standing on the shoulders of giants. Have you read those giants? Are you familiar with those giants? Right. And again, serials heavily influential modern TV, but we might not have forgotten about it. So here, you're not reading them, you're watching them, but you get the idea. Yesterday I was listening to them or playing them on the video games, but you get the idea. But yeah, so if you like that, so all those older things too are the passion of the show, and that sort of thing. Alrighty, but there you are. And I just want to thank you so very, very much, for taking just some time out of your day and investing it and watching my videos, right? Because we all have so many things, right, that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spend this time with me, that's incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it so very, very much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.